Welcome to another show of Don't Get This Twisted. I am Rob, along with my co-host, as always, Tina. How you doing, Tina?
I'm good, Rob. How you doing?
Oh, not too shabby for whatever day we're recording on.
You're listening to us on Wednesday.
On
so it's
Wednesday. It's Wednesday. It's a nice Wednesday. Exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah, not too shabby for this day today. And lots in the news today. And I think that's what you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah. So I don't watch the news, but it is on in my house because I live with my father right now. And a couple of friends that I respect that have their head on straight and don't play into the fear are starting to say that they're afraid with the state of affairs and things going on in the world. And it's been a little hard because I don't necessarily feel all that safe right now, being that I'm just newly divorced and trying to find my way around this world and, just navigating myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so to hear them say it, I've been like kind of on edge. So we all know that Israel was bombed by the Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Hamas.
Okay. And, that there's been like a lot of talk about the next World War III or like what's going to happen. We let all these terrorists into our country and now they want to put up a wall, which will be blocking us in as well as us, letting people in. So that's kind of been something that's been on my mind. The stuff that went on with Maui and how they're saying that it's all a big conspiracy, that's been on my mind. It doesn't really feel like the same world that we lived in. I was listening to a song today from the 80s and I don't even know. It's called We Didn't Start a Fire. And I remember that song back in the day, like all the scary things that were going on at that time. And they're still going on now. And we're talking 40 years plus later. So, I don't know. Things have just been kind of a little off balance for me. I feel like there could be a little bit of depression going, but it's almost fear-based. And yeah, that's what's been going on.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, obviously there's what's going on in Israel and between them and the Palestinians. We'll get to that in a second. But before that, I will say I do kind of agree. I think, and I almost think that it's not fear mongering this time. I mean, there is a lot going on and there's thousands of people coming over the border and hard to regulate them. Since the bombs started dropping or since Palestinians went into Israel, they've already caught, at least the last number I saw, 106 people that were from the Middle East trying to come over the border in Mexico because there's just too many people coming over. So I think that there is a lot going on with that. You're, like you said, newly divorced. My friend down the street also has said that like people are saying, oh, you have to be careful. If you're living alone, you have to be careful. People are going to come rape and murder you. So I think there's a lot being said to that. And is it fear mongering? It could be. I think that there is an influx of humans coming into the state across the board and in the country. So I think that it's a little of both. Do I think you should be totally afraid? No, but I think
of course not.
Should you be on guard? Yes, but I think people in general should be. I'm a proud gun supporter. I think we should all have them. If you look at what happened in Israel, from a 2A standpoint or a being able to own gun standpoint, 2% of the people in Israel were allowed to own guns, which in this country is right now about 34% of the people in this country own firearms, which I think is staggeringly low.
Absolutely.
Well, right after that attack, I want to say prime minister or president, I don't know what they call him in Israel, took that shit away and was like, I want everyone in this country can be armed. So it just goes to show you how quickly they will start handing out firearms to the public when we are in need, which is why I think that everyone should own a firearm because you never know when things are going to go sideways. You just don't. And
the way the videos, I don't know if you saw anything, but the videos of how they came in and started attacking people and just slitting their throat and dragging them through the streets and stomping on their heads after they were dead. Like, these are people that just went into a territory that was apparently not theirs at the time. I don't, who knows all that political crap, and they just started killing people like in huge quantities, and nobody was ready for it. Nobody was able to defend themselves. It was almost like they were walking or riding targets, like if they were on something, because people were just getting shot down everywhere.
It was everywhere. I mean, they were flying in and parachuting in with these like little vehicles. They went to a music festival and just started raining bullets down on people. And I did see some of the footage of them running through or into a neighborhood. I think I sent that one to you.
And they killed almost everybody in that neighborhood.
Women, children. I mean, they took, from what I understand, there's hundreds of people being held hostage.
Yes. And their women, children, and the elderly are the ones that they targeted.
Well, it's soft targets. The elderly obviously are a softer target. Children can't fight back. And if you're not allowed to own a firearm, women can't really fight back against guns. They were talking about the atrocities that were done to them. It's been so much. It's overwhelming in my head to deal with that. It's kind of interesting too, because what you say is from what, I think you're going to, I'm going to try to be fair to both sides of the media outlet. The Israeli news is saying this happened, where I haven't seen footage, but supposedly they decapitated children. The other side is saying it never happened, and it's just them trying to push an agenda. So,
we could look politically at that, and it could be either way.
Correct.
But the footage I saw still was not right. Like, people were dead, and they were stomping on their heads.
See, I didn't see any of that, thankfully.
I saw that.
But I did hear that they
disgusting.
I did hear that they were dragging dead bodies through the street, and like they were trophies. I guess that's the best way of putting it. And
what they were doing to women that were dead, like declothing them and dragging them around and slapping them in just inappropriate ways, even if they were clothed. And they were doing stuff. I was like, what the hell is wrong with people?
Well, I mean, if without sounding horribly bad, they're animals.
Yeah.
I mean,
because whatever your political views are, me and you don't agree on everything, but you won't see me like trying to slaughter you and your family and kick you around and do all those things. Like, wow. I was raised to have, that karma would kick my ass for even thinking those things, let alone doing them. And here these people are doing them. And I'm like, how do you have that much hate in your heart? And how do you sleep at night knowing that you did that? I know where do you start with all this. I told you I had a lot on my head.
Without going down the rabbit hole of religion, I think you're talking a part of the world that you can question is still in the dark ages. I know I'm trying to like walk lightly without sounding we live in a country that's different. We live in a country full, for one, of mostly freedoms, where we've elevated women to a much higher position in the world. So as an American looking at the rest of the planet, it's very hard to try to understand the behaviors. And I'll try to be fair too. Like you can look at other countries, Africa, where it's still the slave trade. There's more slaves traded now than there was ever. The same with the Middle East, where there's slavery through lots of different ways. So it's a different place. And I think it's hard for us when we start seeing the news to try to fathom what is going on over there. We see them as what they are, animals. If you're doing things like that, and it's not even a conventional war. These people they're terrorists. They went across the border and slaughtered innocent people to try to prove a point or try to reoccupy what they think is theirs. I think what they don't understand is that Israel has a military. And when they decide to go into Gaza, they will level it. They will live. You want to see, and the neighboring countries have already told the Palestinians, don't come here. We're not letting you in.
Wow.
So, and here's the argument on the flip side of that. The Palestine or Gaza is like 50% children.
Mm-hmm.
So they're shooting bombs and rockets over into what you would think is lots of women and children. Now, to be fair to the other side, they did tell them, leave, because we're coming. So it's a hard thing for me to see as like in war. Like, we dropped pamphlets in Japan before we dropped the atomic bomb and said, do not stay here. Bad shit's coming. And they didn't listen. And we bombed a country and use an atomic weapon. So it's a whole other monster. But we also did kind of try to be humane and say, leave, because
there was
this
really
is a target.
nothing humane about that, though.
Well, again, we're talking about wartime. World War II is a whole other monster.
Right.
But I'm trying to say that the Israelis did tell them, like, leave, get out, because we're going to shoot rockets and drop bombs on you. It's coming. So if there is kind of any humanity in war, we try to live within the Geneva Convention, or most countries do. And we try to be humane in war. Like, you don't shoot medics. Because you have to have someone on the battlefield to help. Right. But that being said, these people came into a nation and killed civilians, mostly civilians. And I heard the death count, as the last time I heard, was about 1,300 people. That's more than Pearl Harbor and more than 9/11. So look and I'm trying to gauge
and
on
look at what we did because of
that. Mm-hmm. What did you expect Israel to do? They're not going to sit on their hands. And of course, right afterwards, the Palestinians went, well, we want a ceasefire now. It's like, what? You're not going to get a ceasefire. You'll be lucky in days if they stop shooting rockets and dropping bombs. And I've tried to get some footage or some kind of pictures before we went on the air. Like, Gaza's in rubble. They are not playing around. And I think that there's going to be, obviously fallout from this, because Israel's going in there as an army. They're going to have tanks. They're going to have big machinery and bigger bombs. And they also have an air force, which they're fighting people who the only weapons they have are ours, because supposedly the arms that we left in Afghanistan have been resold all over the world.
And that's another argument for why in the fuck do we keep training people to have a military and leaving them shit that's going to come back and haunt us in the future.
Yeah, or haunt somebody else.
It's happened over and over and over again. It's haunting all of us because everybody's afraid now. This has caused everybody to fear what comes next.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the leader of the Hamas, who were now, and I was telling you beforehand, they were actually voted in 2006. So, quote unquote, terrorist organization. And we can argue that until we're blue in the face, because some people will say they're not. they were voted in 2006. And after 2006, Israel left their land alone. And
Okay.
Gaza's small. It's not very big, but it's full of a lot of people. The leader has been dubbed by Israel as a dead man walking. So their goal is to get this guy and make a
torturous example of him.
They're going to make an example of him, but unfortunately, they'll probably end up making him a martyr because it's just going to piss more people off. I think that I think you have to look at, it's just an unstable place. The Israelis were given a country in the late 40s after World War II. And since then, we were also part of the United Nations at that point, and they decided to give a piece of land to the Arabs and the Jews. And what ended up happening was the Arabs were not happy with the size of what they were given. And the Israelis were. They were like, cool, we'll just take this little piece of land, leave us alone. We just want our own place to live. And the Arabs attacked them. And the Israelis won and then took the bigger piece of the pie. And now that's what is modern day Israel. I think, they're going to have a target on their back. They feel that the surrounding countries feel that they were given something that they didn't deserve.
Right.
And
yeah, it's
been like that forever. So I think we're just in we're just in a bad place. And I think I don't know how it's going to be fixed because all they know is violence. So,
well, what happened last time? We got involved. We went and bombed everything. Supposedly got who was the creator of that, and which that still remains to be seen. Really, what were we doing in another country going after in Afghanistan, man? Like we could go through that as well. Like,
well, we wear the S on our chest. Unfortunately, we've been playing Superman before World War II. So, look, foreign affairs is a whole weird thing. I know, without getting too geopolitical about it, if we cut off the rest of the world, a lot of world would be in turmoil, right? Because we're Superman and we're a superpower and we're supposed to help other people. We're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't, right? We have allies that we have to make sure are taken care of, like Israel and England and others. But by doing that, we also put a target on our back. I would say,
especially the way that we treat women versus the way they feel about them. That's right. There is a big difference in how we're looked at.
Correct. Oh, for sure. But it's funny, though, because I saw some older pictures in the mid to late 70s, I believe, of Iran. And girls look like 70s girls in America. They had go-go boots on and skirts, and it was a different place. So a power got into power there and then changed it backwards again. So it's about power struggles within the government, or what they think is the government. Some of those countries have been taken over by dictatorships. So Iraq was with Saddam Hussein, where they just turned the clock back to the Stone Age, where women had no rights and couldn't do anything, and you were really under the thumb of your husband. If you were even accused of cheating, they stoned you to death, which is fucking insanity. So I think a lot of this is also going to come down to, obviously, religious beliefs. There's different religions. One is Muslim and one is Israeli or Jewish. So there's that. Then there's what they say is stolen land. So it's this ripple effect. But if you're going to start a conflict, which is now going to be a war, at least have some balls and say, we're declaring war on you for our land. You don't send armed mercenaries in to kill women and children. Because if you do...
Well, because it just brought a bunch of terror to the world is what it did.
Well, and remember, like, sooner or later, there's a bigger fish.
Mm-hmm.
And the bigger, like I said, like the prime minister or president of Israel, he even said, he goes, we're going to leave Gaza in rubble. Like, that was his quote. Like, they're going to flatten that land and make it unlivable.
And then when they asked, well, what about the people that don't back the terrorist organization? And he said, this is an act of war.
Mm-hmm.
They need to protect themselves because this is going to happen regardless.
Yeah. Well, and I think they're fucked, right? So you voted him into power at some point, or someone did, in 2006. So look, it's 2023. We're talking over 15 years later. I guarantee you there hasn't been another election.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason. Because if you don't have elections, there's no change in power. And the people are subjugated, right? It's kind of like England with a king. Once they're in power, it's impossible to take it back without violence.
Mm-hmm.
And, a rise up is going to be difficult because there's so many people there that either back them or they have so much firepower that the regular folks can't do anything.
Well, and what's going to happen, because our government's going that way too. What's going to happen when there's an uprising here that's big enough to cause change?
Well, I mean, look at January 6th, and I will call that a small riot. I love that they like to call it an insurrection. I find that absolutely humorous, because if no one had guns, could you imagine if the people there were armed that day? And I mean, for real, not this nonsense that people keep. Oh my goodness, they tried to take over the government that day. No, they didn't. Because if they did, they would have went in with guns and they would have killed everyone in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
They were
protesting, and a few people got out of hand.
Correct. No different than the Summer of Love with BLM and them burning cities to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could have been way worse. And if they were trying to take over the government, that's what would have happened. They would have just killed everyone and burned the Capitol to the ground. But they didn't. It was a bunch of people who were taking photos at people's desks. I don't know if you really think about it. And there's over 250-year-old art in that building.
Mm-hmm.
That no one burned to the ground. Why? Makes you kind of wonder, because they weren't there to do that. They were pissed, and sure, like you should, but insurrectionists, no, it's kind of nonsense. So I can't see the Palestinians taking their country back from terrorists, because the terrorists will not let them do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It's true. Yeah.
So that region is now going to be unstable for quite a while. And the Israelis are going to have a much larger target on their back now. Much, much larger.
I don't think so. I think the Israelis are saying, don't fuck with us because we're stronger than you know. And you guys will never have as much as we do to get it, the way we need it to be. I think Israel, they're kind of badasses to me, because they're small, but they are mighty, and they've been fighting for centuries because they're on the Holy Land, and they're not going out without a fight and a big fuck you to boot.
Yes. I totally agree. I think the thing, coming out of World War II, their slogan was never again. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Obviously, we can question how many Jews were killed. At least 4 million.
They mean it.
Oh, they mean it.
They mean it.
And anyone who's ever tried to change that is been
Gotten a
shown.
boot to the ass. Yeah.
So I think what's going to come out of this, obviously lots of death, unfortunately. You're going to see Israel probably lackadaisical there who gets to own firearms. I think you may even see a somewhat of a Second Amendment there. I think that the citizens are going to probably
demand
armed.
that they get to keep their arms for sure. And they should.
And they should.
For where they live alone, they should.
Correct. And no different than us. Like, I don't think that here we're too worried about foreign people here much anymore. We make the best weapons on the planet. If there's anything that this country's good at, it's war. We are. But why we get to keep our arms are from domestic issues, like our government, like the police, like the people who decide to have crime here, or become criminals. I think that Israel has finally seen that terrorists are nothing but criminals, and arming their civilians is probably the best for them. I think what's going to come out of this is, unfortunately for the Palestinians, is lots and lots and lots of homelessness. And if other countries are not willing to take in these refugees, it's going to be bad. The first thing is Israel did in any war, and I know people are like, I can't believe they did it. They cut off the power, cut off the water, and cut off food. Because if you can't fight them one way, you starve them out. And when you have no clean water, no way to get rid of your waste, no food, and no electricity, it's going to get really bad for them. Worse. And for the people who are fighting, the Hamas, or the group of freedom fighters, for what they like to be called, they're just as much in the dark. You know what I mean? When there's no food coming in, the Russians were very good at doing this to the Nazis. The Nazi party decided that they were going to try to go into Russia in the wintertime. What Russia did is, every time they lost a town, because they were getting pushed further and further in, the Russians would burn down the city because the Nazis would have nothing to sleep in. So what they did is they just freezed them out, and they started dying off because they were freezing to death. The Israelis are doing the same thing, but with no power. If you have no power and you have no water, and there's no way in or out to get food, then what happens? The war is going to stop quickly. And when people are dropping bombs and shit on you, and buildings are falling down around you, it's hard to fight, So I think you're going to find that this conflict will probably be a very short one. I'm hoping, maybe a month. I'm guessing, maybe less. But how do you fix the situation going forward, right? Do you take Hamas out of power? And do you have Israel or the United Nations try to put a new government in place in Gaza? You know what I mean? Like, maybe a little more pro-Israel and less death. Like, hey, we're going to leave your land alone. We're going to help you the most we can. Stay out of Israel. We'll leave the Gaza Strip alone. I don't know what comes from this. Hamas cannot stay in power there. If they stay in any kind of power, this is just going to happen again.
I agree. Yeah, it's been, to me, like, watching all this unfold, it's making me anxious and angry and totally frustrated. I'm seeing that it's, even though we're not there, it's affecting everybody that I know to some degree. It doesn't seem like there's one person that's not talking about it or posting something about it on social media or saying something when I go out to eat with them, or it seems like it's very, we're very saturated with it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm not digging it. I'm not digging any of this.
You know, this is the first, with the exception of Afghanistan, where like, you know, our troops had phones and we're trying to send stuff back. You know, social media wars are going to be different with social media now, right? You and I think with like Ukraine or Russia, like you had to pick a side. You're not picking a side, you know. What's wrong with you? It's like I am picking a side. It's America.
Yeah.
Like,
and what is going on in the Ukraine since all of this started? Because I haven't heard shit. Doesn't that make you kind of wonder? It was like all really important and now nobody's hearing anything.
Yeah. Well, you're also not hearing anything about the Hunter Biden laptop or our president, you know, getting impeached because they're trying to impeach him. There's a lot of things now that are not in the news. And if they're not in the news, people forget about them and then they just go away. So look, I would hate to say it's a proxy war and it's meant to make people forget, because I don't think that that's what it is. But I do hate that the modern media, they just shift everything to one place. And we have to worry
and
about
there seems to be an agenda behind that too.
For sure.
There does.
Oh, there's without a doubt. And I don't want to just say it's the Democrats, because I don't believe that as well. I think that it's we're worker bees as people, mostly in this country. We're definitely worker bees. And, you know, we like to get up in the morning, drink our coffee, read a little bit of the news, work for 8 hours, and then come home and kind of disappear into forgetting about things. That's why we have so many movie channels and things that we can forget about. But then there's the flip side of having a phone next to us that tells us the news about everything that's going on and everyone,
minute by minute. And even if you don't have any news apps on your phone,
for sure,
because I don't have any of that.
Social media is the news. That's the problem as well. That's a bigger problem. And I think where, you know, like you said, I haven't seen any of the gruesome videos. Thankfully, I do my best to stay away from that kind of stuff. It's bad enough as it is that there's people dying.
It was so bad I couldn't finish the video.
Yeah, I'm sure TikTok is probably the place to find things like that.
TikTok is where I got it. Yeah. Because my friend sent it to me.
Because I think that it's a little less
censored.
Yeah, because Instagram, you know, things get on Instagram and they get cut off very quickly. Look, I think there is something to that as well. Like, I think people do need to see the real news. I think America is very good at letting you forget about the reality of what's going on, even though they may tell you. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen like Mexican news where they like when they find 40 bodies on the side of the road, they show it. Like, there's a camera in the hole where there is a bunch of bodies. And
wow.
And I think that changed after Vietnam, because I would remember my dad telling me like the news was littered with dead people during Vietnam, like bad. It was on every night when the family was eating dinner, they were showing footage from Vietnam and like people losing limbs and dead bodies and lots of things. And since then, the American media has definitely, even when we were in a war, they don't show that. They may show physical people shooting, but they never show the remnants of what happened.
No, even for this, they had the bodies all blurred out. There was a bunch of bodies on the street that they had on the side as they were parading women, children, and elderly down the street. They were dragging them down the street with their hands behind their back, and they blurred out all the dead bodies.
So, I mean, there's a little censorship to it, but I don't think that they're even showing that on the news here. I think they're just like showing buildings.
Well, that was here.
Oh, it was here. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that is kind of better, that at least they're kind of trying to show the reality of what's going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to be a tale of two cities, right? Whatever the media wants you to root for, whether it's Israel or Palestine. I think that we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. I don't want to see anyone die because it's a loss of life.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's going to happen when you poke the bear too long and the bear gets out of the cage. It generally mauls everyone to death.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're going to see that in Gaza, where even if they don't kill a lot of people, they're going to make that part of the world uninhabitable. It'll take years to rebuild the buildings there.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, here's the flip side of this. And I hope it's not true, but it probably will be. You know who's probably going to get the contracts to go and rebuild Gaza?
We will.
We will. So American contractors will go and rebuild that part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming. I don't want to throw that out there, but do you know how many billions of dollars will be made off rebuilding that place?
And where will all that money end up? Because we really don't ever see it.
Yeah.
So,
well, American companies with American contracts. I'm hoping maybe that doesn't happen and local people will go over there and rebuild the country. It'll be a lot less money that we have to put into it, because I'm sure that that's also going to come out of our taxpayer money. We're going to fund the Palestinians to rebuild a country that just got leveled by their neighbor over murdering.
Over them being dumbasses and going in and starting a war.
Yeah. Look, and like I said, geopolitics is a whole other thing. And look, maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand it. But I find it quite easy to go, yeah, fuck this country. Don't help them because they're doing this, and this. It's like we send humanitarian aid to Africa all the time. And I think we should. But it gets there and the warlords take it for their own and no one ever gets helped. And we continue to try to put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole instead of going in and fixing the problem. But then we'd start a whole other war. And I think that's the other problem. We're damned if we do as America and damned if we don't. We're either the most horrible country on the planet because we're helping this country and not helping this one, or we're not helping this country because we don't want to get involved in a war. You know, I don't think any American should go to the Middle East and lose their life over this. Sorry.
I agree.
I just don't. It's not our fight. If Palestine is going to fight, they're going to. And if the Israelis are going to go in there and level it, they are. Everyone just needs to really kind of be left the fuck alone. But unfortunately, a band of terrorists went into a country and killed 1,300 people in a day. You can't expect them to not retaliate. You just can't.
No, and they should fight back. Like, that's the way they're doing it and what they're doing. Fight back as much as you can. Fuck that. From what I've seen, and I'm not looking for it, so this is just stuff that's floated down into my lap. Fight your freaking asses off, because you don't. That was so beyond anything that they should have ever have even tried to do, let alone do. Like, where is your humanity? Where is your heart? Where is your, like, what is really going on? Because that was brutal. That was brutal beyond comprehension.
The bigger thing is what I think will end up coming out is who helped fund this. Because we know we just gave $6 billion back to Iran. So we
funded it.
Well, it was their money.
I wouldn't be surprised.
We froze it. We froze their money. And then for some reason, the president of this country let a bunch of people go and prisoners of war and then unfroze the bank account. And then this happens. I'm not saying that it's for sure funded by Iran, but I think that, once things start coming out or we can find out intel, if they help fund the Hamas, and there's going to be bigger repercussions. If you think gasoline is expensive now, wait, it'll be $12 a gallon, because
fuck.
Yeah, and it's already bad,
It's horrendous here.
So I hope not, and then I hope we don't get involved in another 20-year war. Like, for one, we don't have the money, we don't have any of the arms because we gave most of our shit to the Ukraine, But, and again, I just saw this on Instagram, and I don't know if it's true, so don't fact check me. But supposedly a bunch of people in Congress bought war bonds before the attack in Israel. So, look, we make a lot of money on making arms. So I hope we don't get involved. It's like there's too many young people. One of my son's friends from high school just joined the Army. I hope that we stay very far from this and let the cards fall as they will. But I think that something's going to happen. Either that, or you're going to find other countries getting involved. Maybe not us, but other United Nations.
Really, is that even an option? Because nobody gets involved but us.
Well, yeah.
It always seems to be us.
It does. Well, and then everyone else falls, right? So if we get involved, generally Australia will send people, England, countries that are our allies get involved. But this is a touchy one. Look, they poke the bear. Things are going to happen. I hope that a lot of women and children and innocents left Gaza and found some place to go. So the Israelis can bomb the shit out of the buildings that are empty and just leave it in ruin. I think that Israel is going to go in there and they're going to get certain people. They're going to get Hamas leaders and make
examples out of them.
Probably bad ones as well.
Oh yeah.
They'll probably get drugged through the street and hung in front of everybody.
Well, what they you know what? If they get what they gave, fuck.
Yeah. And now there's argument. And again, I don't want to play one side. I don't know. But, the Palestinians have said Israel's been doing this kind of stuff for years. So I think it's, like I said, it's a tale of two stories. I don't know enough about it, but I think that it's something that, at least as the United States, we need to take a step back before we ever take any more steps forward. We have our own issues. And, Friday was the Hamas leader said, go crazy all over the world.
Yeah.
And I know
Friday the 13th.
I know a teacher in France was killed by somebody. There was also an attack in China on a Jewish professor by somebody. But that's all that I heard that was bad. Nothing happened here, just because I think there's too many people armed in this country that would go crazy. I don't know. I think like I said, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. I hope no more people lose their lives, because Israel will take it tenfold. For the 1,500 people that were killed, they'll probably kill 4 times the people. The death toll will be insurmountable,
astronomical.
Yeah. And no one wants that. I don't think any of them want it. Trust me, the Israelis don't want to go in there and kill people. But a war has been started. So I think that when you start a war, there's repercussions to that. Even though you may not have declared war, you did something that was very non-military and very terroristic. So
absolutely.
I don't know, Tina. I think that the world is very much a time bomb all over the place. But the Middle East just seems to be a very hotbed of
it's
of that.
volatile right now.
And I think it's been volatile for a while. I mean, it's the Holy Land, and there's so many things that have gone on in that part of the world that are taken very heavily and very real. There's no grains of salt over there.
No.
It's a different place, and it's funny because there's so many religions there. You have the Muslims, but you have the Jews, and then you have Christians and Catholics that are all mixed into this thing where it's a scary thing. And my friend down the street has told me a lot of things that are very biblical, like end of days and revelations, and it's very scary.
That's another part. You say keep religion out of this, but the way I was raised, that shit is all in my head going, fuck. Okay, get ready because here it comes.
Because it's a very scary thing. And even if this isn't the end of days, it's another chink in the armor of the end. There's so many things that are very scary, and I'm hoping we stay out of this, at least in the meantime. See what happens in the next week or two. Hopefully let the dust settle, and maybe they can come to an agreement to stop killing each other. But I personally, I think it's maybe time for a new regime in Gaza. Maybe get someone who is not having their finger on the let's kill everybody button.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, maybe there should be. See, the problem is that as much as people hate to hear it because they think an open border is the greatest thing in the world here, every Democrat liberal leader is like, we just need to let everyone in. You go anywhere else on this planet, there's borders. There's heavy borders that they let no one in. Like Poland has let no one in. There's not a Muslim in there.
It, though. You can't get out either when there's borders like that. So if we put up the border, we also create a wall for us to have to get over. I'm not saying don't have a border. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we really need to think about how we're going to border, because we need to be able to come and go as we please, because that is our right. But we also need to stop these people from coming in because we just can't take care of them.
Yeah.
We're letting terrorists into our backyard. We shouldn't be doing that either.
Look, borders work for a reason. As much as people go, we just need to let people in. You know that at the bottom of Mexico, there's a wall that they keep people out of. So to say that we're the only one that's doesn't want to let immigrants in, it's crazy. We actually let more in than any other country on the planet.
Absolutely.
So it's nonsense. And there's countries that are nationalists, I guess, that want to keep the people safe, and they don't let people in that are known terrorists.
That's not our country, though.
No, they let them all in. These are countries in Europe that are very stringent, and I'll give you one that's on our border, Canada. You know that if you want to go to Canada right now and move there, you have to show them that your job is worthy in their country. And if they have too many of you, if they have too many hairstylists, they'll go, no, we don't need you here. Thanks. So everyone has some kind of border or way to get into the country. The Middle East is just, there's a melting pot of religions that don't believe the same thing. One of
Not even close.
One of Hamas's things in their pamphlet or their thing is to eradicate the Jews.
And they're right next door to each other. Fuck.
So I think you're finding a way to make this happen when you've been fighting for thousands of years is going to be very difficult.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Where this country is not even 300 years old and we don't kill each other like that. So I don't know.
Yep.
I think,
but we have.
No, we have. Oh, don't get me wrong. The Civil War, we killed our own people.
We killed our own,
well,
and we killed people that were indigenous to the land that we needed to help us grow and evolve. And
yeah,
we cut off our own nose to spite our face.
And we're not the only people to do that either.
No,
it's been happening since the dawn of man. Man has killed each other since Cain and Abel, and they were related.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's born and bred into of human beings. We're animals. We just kill for the wrong reasons. We don't kill to eat and survive. We just kill to kill. So we're a special bunch for sure.
Yeah.
I would say, do you have any last words?
I would say what I say to my friends when we're talking about it, all of this is just be a little more kind. Because we can't stop anything from happening right now, but we could, if this would be our last day on earth, how would we want to be remembered? And I think that being kind isn't a bad thing to be.
I'll go along with that. I think there's something to it. And look, have your opinion. I think it's important. There's nothing wrong. If you are going for the side that is not, commercially liked, have a good opposing opinion. Bring it to the table. Mm-hmm. And look, we all got to teach each other, but stop, we got to stop the killing for sure. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. Check out our socials. Give us some cool feedback shows you would like us to talk about. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And catch us on Apple, Spotify, and all those cool podcast places. Share this with people and go on to those other places and give us ratings, please, because it actually helps other people hear us. And it's an opinion show, so don't get it twisted. Don't be mad at us. We have our own. Until next Wednesday, that's my co-host over there, Tina. And I'm Rob. Thanks for listening. Talk to you later, team.
Have a good one.
You too.